In only 30 days, I took one HVAC contractor in California from spending $17,000 in advertising to making $287,000 in revenue in only one single month. And in this video, I'm going to go over the exact process where we spend our money on advertising and what channels to focus on so you can reproduce similar results. Now, I want to preface that every home service business has a different sales process, has a different process turning repairs into replacements. And so this is a process that's worked for us, and these are the channels that worked for us in the city and in the service area that we are located in. So this in no way would, in no way, shape, or form would you be able to represent the same results, but these are the things that worked exactly for us that you can replicate and try in your own business as well. So let's first take a look at the numbers that we generated and where we actually spent our advertising dollars. The first one, primarily, we spent money on Meta, so primarily image and video ads on Facebook and Instagram. We generated around $133,000 in revenue in installs from $6,000 spent on ads. And so all the money in advertising that was spent over here was on replacements. We only advertised for replacements only. And what produced here was a 20x ROI. So you can see that the greatest ROI in our advertising here is going to be Meta. And the second best is going to be, in terms of ROAS, was going to be Google. What I mean by Google is we ran local service ads. This is for repairs, maintenance, and replacements. So a lot of the calls that we got were messages or urgent calls from customers, and we only pay when we actually received a call or message. And we spent around $1,600 and yielded $31,000 in revenue from a mix of repairs and maintenance calls, and that was a nearly 19x ROAS. Now, the two other platforms that were really lucrative for us was YouTube, which produced nearly $77,000 in revenue. These were video ads that we were running on YouTube, and it produced a 10x ROAS for us, which is still pretty good. And then also Yelp, which produced also a 10x ROAS for us. We generated $20,000 from $2,000 in ad spend. So all in all, every single platform that we spent money on had at least a 10x ROAS. I have Hero right here because that's a government rebate program that they had available in California, to where we found a government assistance program for one of our customers. And since we signed up for Hero, we got a job for $26,000, and the customer ended up not using government funding, but we still were able to finance them and get the job done for $26,000. So there was no ad spend associated with this, but it was just one job. So this took place in September of 2025, and this is one of our strongest months of the year. And so if you look at across the board, this is what we spent on advertising, and this is what we were able to yield, right? So, minimum 10x ROAS with some platforms yielding a 20x ROAS. So, but what did that actually entail? So when we break down the numbers on Meta right here, I took a photo of our Meta ads, is we're getting leads for approximately, anywhere between $30 to $67, which if you can see on average here, our average lead cost here is around $50, right? So if we were to spend around $6,000, you can do the math here and divide it by 50. $50 is a lead. A lead doesn't necessarily mean you actually go to their home. I would say the approximate conversion rate for an in-home estimate is around, out of 3 leads, you go to 1 home, right? So from here, we were to generate, I think it was here, 50, 110, good 120 leads, and let's say we go to around 40 homes. If we go to around 40 homes, our average ticket size at least 12 grand, we had a 25% closing rate, right? We closed around, every 4 homes that we go to, which means our acquisition cost was pretty much around, $200. Or no, hold on. 450 times 3, 150, around $600, right? Our cost per acquisition for Meta ads was $600 for a closed job, which honestly isn't bad, right? Now let's take a look at YouTube. You can obviously see here on YouTube, our average lead cost is much higher. It's around $134 per lead. Now on YouTube, we're also advertising for replacements, right? So our replacements advertisements here, advertising on Google is just typically more expensive, but the lead quality is higher, right? Because a lot of people are advertising on Meta, so there's really high competition. But on Google, we're actually able to get a lead for $134, which is honestly, 2-3x the acquisition cost. But what we're able to see is we're able to recoup that on the back end. And instead of charging a $12,000 average ticket, our average ticket was mostly closer towards anywhere between $14,000 and even $25,000, right? So on Google, we're running replacement advertisements here on Meta and replacement advertisements here on Google. And so this is avenue that is super lucrative for us. So the next place I wanted to look at was Yelp, right? And as you know, with Yelp, there's only so much that you can do. Is our advertising budget was only around $2,000. And as I can recall, we closed only $20,000 worth of jobs. That was approximately 2 jobs at around $2,000 each, right? So you can see that the conversion rate was not as very good. It's because we're looking at around here 6 calls, 12 messages. Let's say we were to get 18 customers respond. We go to 6 homes, we close around 2 of those jobs. There's a 33% close rate, but the conversion rate from those messages was not very good at all. Right, but all in all, it still produced at least a 10x ROAS, which validates me, for this to be worthy, continue running as a advertising platform, right? So if you want to produce similar ROAS, I strongly advise that you need to diversify your lead generation, right? And for each platform, you're not going to get a 10x ROAS right away. When we first started with these platforms, sometimes we just broke even. Right, but we continued because we wanted to see it through. A lot of contractors, they start running advertisements on Meta or Google or Yelp, and they expect, I'm just gonna hit a home run. Right, but unless your sales process is super dialed, or maybe you worked with these type of leads before, the type of leads that you're gonna get on every platform are going to be completely different. Right? For example, the Meta leads, they're gonna shop around a little bit more, maybe get 2-3 quotes. On Google, you're maybe 1 of 2 quotes. Or maybe you're the only quote, but your acquisition cost is literally 3 times as much. The Yelp leads are a little bit more of Karens, and they respond to multiple contractors, so it's a race of whoever gets there first. And there's not as much transparency in reaching the customer. You have to call through the Yelp platform, and you respond in Yelp. It's a real pain in the ass, but we're still able to reach and get all these numbers, right? And the reason I didn't show the LSA numbers is just they're highly volatile. I think from $31,000, we closed like 3 jobs. $1,600 our average phone call that we get. I think we probably got around 30 phone calls. Probably went to like 15 of them, or maybe like 10 of them, 10, 15 of them. Some of them were repairs. So out of 10, 15 calls, we closed 3 of them. That's like a 20-30% close rate. So pretty much on all platforms, I think, on Meta, you're looking at a 20-30% close rate, 20-30% close rate on Yelp. And honestly, on Google, what we were seeing, we were doing more of, 40-60%, right? If you look at that average tickets, maybe we're closing around like 5 jobs, maybe from, but the conversion rate from those leads maybe wasn't as great, but our closing rate was actually higher. Right, so although one platform might have, increased costs in advertising, it might be worth it on the back end if you can close the job at a higher ticket, simply because there's less competition for that lead. And if you're interested in us maybe replicating these acquisition channels for your home service business, feel free to book a call with us below, and we'll see if we're a good fit to work together.